I've been detained and placed in the Gulag, for I have committed a thought violation. The Ministry of Truth has given me a warning based on the most nebulous of charges. Google has informed me that the video I made describing Nick Cannon's racist statements constitutes hate speech. You used to have to reach such a lofty elevation of disdain for your fellow man to be labeled as hate speech. But this ever increasingly punishable sin, the height, the altitude where you have to reach is ever decreasing until right now it's at sea level, where if you trip, you're going to be accused of hate speech. My video about the double standard of racism, where if you have a certain darker pigmentation, that you are able to say virtually anything you want and get at best tepid pushback because you right now are in a protected class. And in Nick Cannon's case, for the statements that he made regarding white people, pigmentation, something about savages somewhere in there, and I'm being vague because I don't want the Ministry of Truth to be tipped off again. My question, my hypothesis is if the shoe was on the other foot, would all these people that were praising and defending Nick Cannon, would they not be up in arms? And that really is the question at hand. What if the shoe's on the other foot? The golden rule is treat people like you would like yourself to be treated. It's very simple, but people don't adhere to it because they have one ideological position that they hold firm to. Question: am I allowed to use the term black people? Is that not yet a hate term for a white person to use? Surely the fact that I'm not black should legally bar me from recognizing somebody as having darker skin. You think I'm kidding, but this is not only the way that our society, the direction that our society is moving, but we are rapidly galloping there. End sidebar. The problem that I have with hate speech is not that I don't acknowledge that there is some hate speech that actually does exist, but is very difficult to define. And the people that want to carve out of the mountain just that little bit of hate speech will increasingly dig out larger and larger chunks as they see more and more of it. This is actually what makes me pretty close to a free speech absolutist, because the moment we start chiseling away at that mountain of free speech, we are going to have the least welcome people that claim that they're tolerant but are actually the most intolerant deciding what is and isn't hate speech. When I appealed the decision of the strike that YouTube gave me, I almost instantly received a notification of rejection. It might have been AI, it might have been a human being that looked at it, but there was no further information. The fact that I was merely asking a question about how that shoe would look and feel on the other foot, do I not have to pose the question for people to understand exactly what I'm speaking of? Do I not have to be exact with my words? The room and the door to discourse is rapidly closing shut. In order to discuss things, in order to come to a mutually agreed upon resolution, and more importantly, one that will last, we have to be 100% clear with our views and what exactly we mean. The other option, of course, is merely to hold it in and let those discordant thoughts fester within us. We'll repeat them over and over again to ourselves. And because we have nobody else to express them to, we'll come to the realization that we are being mistreated, that we are being treated unfairly. This is what happens when you hold stuff in. And maybe we'll whisper to each other of like mind in dark and distant alleys. Speaking in shadows will forever obscure the light of mutual understanding. This is truly how the divisions in our society are shaped, how they form. This is why we have to defend our right to free speech with all the vigor, with all the intensity and strength that we can muster. Certain subjects have become off limits to even discuss. In communicating with you, I have to tiptoe around what I said for fear of triggering Big Brother Google's algorithm and ire. And let me ask you, do you think that that trend is going to get worse or better? Once liberties and freedoms begin to be removed from society, it almost always goes downhill without major pushback. And most people are generally too scared to fight back, as they're just trying to eke out a living day to day. And though they'll say privately that they support you, they don't desire to wish their employment. They don't want to alienate their friends and neighbors, and definitely the mob that might come for them should they speak out. Then we become like the frog who's put into warm water and having this temperature slowly turned up until we boil. Every day, the radical left tries to claim new ground in their war against our freedoms and liberties. And big tech seems to be their willing accomplice. Just look at Stefan Molyneux, Dan Dix, and all the other channels on YouTube and Twitter which have been deleted. Do you realize how long it took to grow those channels? Over a decade. All that time answering comments, creating videos, building that community, purged without so much as an explanation. It's theft, pure and simple. You build your business on their platform with an agreement, and without any warning, whoosh, YouTube and Google pull the rug out from underneath you, topple the castle that you've built because they have the power to do so. Centralized power gives rise to such abuses, along with monopoly status. And every day they turn up the heat in the water just a little bit. They change their terms so that former videos, which did not violate guidelines at the time of production, will then give them an excuse to crush you without so much as an explanation. Do you know what it's like to live in China? To live in an authoritarian state like Syria, which I visited? I visited China. I've been to many former Eastern Bloc countries where no one dares say anything bad publicly about the state. You don't get slowly boiled there. You get disappeared. The joke I have is that Kim Jong-un will win 99.5% of the vote this year in North Korea, and the other 5.5% will just be executed. The same thing was true under Stalin, under Lenin, under Pol Pot, and under Hitler. To some degree, we are lucky enough that we are not yet in that position, that we are still the frog who is slowly boiling. And the leftists desire just to cut us open and spill our red blood into the ever-warming water and use it to cover and desecrate the grand American flag with red. The time to speak out against this is now, while we still have the chance to escape with our republic and our freedoms largely intact, and we can rebuild stronger. The time to rise up and make ourselves heard is today, and to stop the cowards that only are bent on destruction. It is so easy to destroy and so difficult to build. Keep those buildings upright. Keep our republic going strong. Peace and blessings to everybody out there. And thumb up this video, share it, and subscribe. Peace out, everybody.